You to this now as we continue to bring you reaction to the president's speech and fallout to some of the main points raised and announced by the president in his speech. You would have heard that the president has appointed or will be appointing an electricity minister, hoping to speed up the timelines of dealing with the crisis at Eskom. The president having also declared a state of national disaster over the crisis at the utility. This, of course, follows growing pressure on the economy as a result of that crisis. Those, of course, were some of the main issues highlighted at the Africa Mining Indaba, which just wrapped up this week, being held in Cape Town, as it always is. Let's discuss further now and pick the brain of Safeera Loonat, who is the head of energy and natural resources at KPMG, and she joins us virtually from Johannesburg. Safeera, so much to speak about, and quite fitting in a way that the Mining Indaba took place in Cape Town this week, with all of those very important issues weighing heavily on so many people in attendance at that conference. You cannot mine without electricity, and you cannot mine without a dependable transport infrastructure. And both Eskom and Transnet have been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. And that was reflected, I believe, from so many of the issues dealt with at the Mining Indaba. What are your main takeaways from the red flags raised by those in attendance at a gathering like the Mining Indaba this week?
Good afternoon, and thank you for that opportunity. I think the key takeaways is that, from my side at least, is that corporate are willing and definitely at the table, to support government as well as to support South Africa in building forward both on the electricity and the energy side as well as on the transport side. And definitely, I think, listening to the Mineral Council as well, where they have supported government since July last year around securing energy, and a lot of the reforms that we've seen, since July last year has been really positive in the energy side in, resolving the load shedding crisis. And we're just hoping, and I think that the key takeaway from a lot of the CEOs and a lot of the key miners was that let's not wait until Transnet falls over and then have to also, go towards a state of disaster on that side. So let's do something now, and everybody is willing and able and definitely at the table to do that.
The president last night officially announced that they're declaring a state of disaster with regards to the electricity crisis. I don't know if you agree with me, but I get the sense that the main reaction to it has been a general raising of the eyebrow. We heard from SAFTU, the unions, Zwelinzima Vavi, saying, what can the state of emergency now do, or state of disaster now do, to fix this issue that they weren't able to do under normal circumstances? What have you read into the reaction, especially from the business side of South Africa, to the announcement of this state of disaster?
Yes, I think there is concern. Again, I think from a South African perspective, before corporate side, is that South Africans have probably gone through the COVID-19 state of disaster, and there is concerns of what does that mean on the side as well. Again, I think it comes back to the question around why are we here, in a state of disaster before anything had been done. Looking at all the research, all the data, all the feedback, this issue was identified in the early 2000s. And again, from a South African, probably public and corporate sector, is that we cannot run a country on a go-forward basis by always reacting at the last minute.
We've seen in the aftermath of these long periods of high stages of load shedding, numbers being reported in on what our corporate giants, our business giants are spending on keeping the lights on, what they're spending on alternative transport, because not only is our rail system, hasn't our rail system's been obliterated, but it's also a security risk. So it has sent their overheads through the roof. And then these announcements are made about plans that are in place. We just heard from Fikile and Balula now saying that they are going to be monitoring these improvements. They're going to be holding people accountable. But we can't deny that there's a massive deficit of trust now between government and between corporate and business South Africa. Do you think that that relationship can be mended?
Definitely. I think, from the mining Indaba side, what I heard was that corporate South Africa are invested. And on the reciprocal side, government is also invested. So I definitely think that that relationship can be mended. I think it obviously in all of this, both from a corporate side, government side, as well as from the general public side, it's around ensuring that how the implementation is done. It needs to be in a clear, open, transparent manner, ensuring that there's no corruption. Because I think if South Africa can get through this state of emergency on that basis, it would go a long way in building trust across the country.
In the aftermath of this, of SONA, there's also a lot of talk about a cabinet reshuffle, potentially a restructuring of portfolios. Fikile Mbalula also speaking about a reconfiguration of government, specifically pertaining to entities like Transnet and Eskom. Those could potentially be big changes. Do you think that that would be a step in the right direction, especially if you look at those important portfolios that looks after public enterprises as well as mining and energy, and then of course this new ministry, Minister of Energy in the presidency coming along as well?
Yes, I think there's been a lot of a lot of feedback provided in terms of restructuring at Eskom, and then probably some changes at Transnet where has been announced. Again, it comes down to implementation. So a lot of it is we had these announcements, and I'm just hoping that we get the implementation perspective really to the benefit of the entire country.
Yeah, implementation and action, it seems, is what everybody is asking for right now, as we sit tight and see what the next few months hold. Safeera Loonat is the head of Energy and Natural Resources at KPMG, joining us there from Johannesburg. We thank her for her insight this afternoon.